I know in the show notes, I say show notes, in the topic stuff he sent over, he said you was like talking, you was getting back into gaming and stuff. You specifically said in that like what should expect from Linux support.
Yeah, because
here's my theory.
I'm literally just starting now. I haven't ever gamed on Linux.
Right. Don't use Linux native games. And I know like there's people watching it can be like, what did he just say? What? Like they're like they're rubbish. We don't need them. Like back in 2003, like John Carmack, for anyone who doesn't know, genius programmer, the guy behind the software that makes Oculus work, as well as Doom, right? Absolute font and the beautiful mind of coding. In 2003, they had an interview, and he just went, "Why would you want Linux native? Just emulate everything. It's easier, right?" Like, and I feel like he nailed it on like in his off the cuff comment, because like we've proven because of DXVK and now Proton and GL9DX, whatever it's called, like translation layers are so fast because we have so much compute we're not using, right? Like if you're playing a game, your graphics card's doing the work, your CPU is just chilling, right? It's just waiting for instructions. We've got so much compute, we can just insert these translation layers and we can get basically native performance on a game that's not like. So why would we ask a developer to spend the time and money making a Linux version when we don't need it and it's no better? And even then, because there's so much diversity between distros, like the game's not going to work all the time for you. And then you run the Proton version because they've targeted fucking Windows, and Proton emulates Windows to your desktop. I say emulate in the loosest term. No one shouted me for that. It's going to work perfectly. And there's so many times, like you try playing the Linux native version of Torchlight 1. Well, I'll tell you now, you can, but you'll be jumping through many hoops. And you play the Proton version, you hit install, and then you hit play, and it works. That's it. That's it. So, like Linux gaming is, and this is why I'm always saying to people, Linux gaming's dead, not because it died, but because it's just gaming now. We got what we wanted. We transcended Linux gaming. We have most of the games on Linux. And if you're willing to use streaming services like GeForce Now, you can basically play anything on Linux. I say that I've got a Windows machine over there because I have a friend who wants to play Valorant, and I was like, fuck it, I've got all these spare computers over here. I'll just throw together something for Windows, which is what I did, just over there. And I just used Steam in-home streaming to just stream, some Windows games over, and that's, it's fine. But like with the rare exceptions of specific stuff my friend wanted to play with me, like I can play everything on between GeForce Now and Proton. There's not a lot I can't play.
Like, yeah, I have noticed that it has actually been like that. Like a mate of mine sent me a message on Discord. He's like, "Hey, do you want to play?" I think he was like, "Oh, you want to play Apex?" I checked Proton DB, completely broken. But then I looked at because that one's got like kernel level DRM, which is
GeForce Now. It wasn't GeForce Now that one does Apex.
But then he was like, "Oh, you want to play Payday 2? It's obviously got a Linux native version," and everyone on Proton DB was just like, "Don't use the Linux native version. The Windows version's better."
Yeah. Don't use it. Yeah, just don't use it. It's rubbish. Yeah, they always are. They always are. And it's like, I feel, and like, there's people on Reddit, you've probably seen them, no tucks, no bucks, right? Like, that's your personal politics. Again, that's totally fine. But why are you preaching this like it's a religious cult? Like, just like if I buy if I buy a game that's only available on Windows and I play it on Linux, that's the most Linuxy solution, right? Like we hacked it. We took something that wasn't for us and we hit it with a hammer until we made it work. That's awesome, right? That's badass, right? Like badgering a developer until they make a half-assed Linux port of something that then doesn't sell and they never want to support us in the future doesn't help anyone. And this idea of helping Linux they always come out with as well. It's like Linux isn't a corporation. It's not a single entity. It doesn't need help. It's almost like a virus that's slowly spreading over all the computing. It's going to be just fine whether you play that Windows game or not. And like when I buy a game, I'm not thinking, let me buy a Linux game today. I'm like, I want to play. I don't go. I want to buy a game. Like I want to play a specific game. Will this work on the operating system? It's never about buying a game as an abstract idea.
Yeah, I think.
A little rant there.
No, that's fine. I think if you're going to be spending your time badgering developers about anything, do it on making sure they don't use these extreme levels of DRM. Make it so you can actually play the game on Linux. Don't try to get them to make a Linux version because everyone's going to benefit from having less strict DRM like that.
Yeah, and also, DRM doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. Like the only people it bothers are the customers that are getting pissed off with it.
Well, there's always a day one crack.
It just doesn't. It's not a day one crack. Like the idea of DRM is to protect your week 1 sales, right? So as long as the DRM holds for a first week, great. So take it out on week 2 then, if that's the case.
Yeah.
That's fine. It's a good compromise. Or like an anti-cheat. Now, anti-cheat, as much as I'd like to say we don't need anti-cheat, the reality is people cheat, right? So we do want to keep competitive. Like, I wouldn't want to play Counter-Strike with no anti-cheat. But Valve's version of anti-cheat involves overwatching people, and it involves like getting, having systems in place that checks for certain actions and stuff. And it doesn't require kernel modules, and it doesn't require intrusive behavior. That's fine. It's a perfectly reasonable type of anti-cheat. That's fine. Because I would not want to play Counter-Strike with no anti-cheat. That just, as much as I'd like to agree with that, like people are shitheads. They're just going to ruin it.